Hey there ghouls and creeps, I'm Britt and welcome to my channel where we do spooky, DIY, home, and lifestyle content all year long. Today we're taking a generic pullover sweatshirt and modifying it into an ugly sweater just in time for Creepmas. I made a set of these for my husband and I for the blog back in 2020, and we both loved having something both festive and spooky to wear for the holiday season. Since that year I've been gifted a Cricut Maker, which I know will bring this project to the next level, plus my skills in Illustrator have also evolved, so I'll be able to modify that original cutting file to something more complex. I'm excited to revisit this project since it was a blog favorite and have the opportunity to hopefully make it better. To start, I needed to remove the sleeves and the cuffs from the sleeves from both my sweatshirts. Once complete, I then took out the underarm seam of one of my sleeves from each sweatshirt to use as a pattern. Let me know in the comments if you consider Nightmare Before Christmas a Halloween movie or a Christmas movie. Looking back at my watching habits, I tend to watch this movie in October, but I'm not opposed to watching it in December as well. I read Long Live the Pumpkin Queen earlier this year, which is a story that picks up right where the movie The Nightmare Before Christmas leaves off, and is really a deep dive into Sally's character, getting into her origin story, as well as getting to witness her evolve into an independent badass that has to go on a quest to save Jack in Halloween Town. I absolutely loved this book and would definitely recommend it. It was suspenseful and a pretty quick read. I was able to read it during a 6-hour plane ride, partially because I couldn't put it down. The next day I got into cutting my sleeves. To do this, I made sure to match up both my vertical and horizontal plaids when cutting 2 layers simultaneously. I should have probably purchased more than a yard worth of fleece because this was a little tight to get both sleeve sets out of, but I found that by flipping the sleeve hems so that they were on opposite sides of my fabric sandwich, that I was able to fit them both. I had to go answer the door, and when I came back, Sunny had found a new comfy bed to nap on. After some coaxing and negotiating in treat form, she left so that I could continue pinning and then cutting out the sleeves. Another important thing to consider is that you will also want to center the vertical plaid in relation to your sleeve piece. For my fabric, I tried to place the corners of my sleeve hems on the outside black lines of the plaid. I found it easier and quicker to use a rotary cutter to cut some of the straight sides of the sleeves. The sleeve hems were too wide for the length of the cuffs, so this meant that I needed to gather the sleeves to match the cuffs. To gather an edge, I usually sew a basting stitch about 3/8 of an inch from the edge so that the stitch line is concealed inside the seam. Backstitch only at one end of the stitch line so that thread tails are left to be pulled to the proper size. Once I had gathered my sleeve hem to what I thought to be the right size, I found my sleeve hem and cuff centers and matched those up when I pinned the two together. I sewed the cuffs to the sleeves with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, then I flipped the seam allowance down in the direction of the sleeve and understitched the seam to keep it in place. With the cuffs attached, I sewed up my underarm seams with a 1/2-inch seam allowance, being mindful to match up the plaids and my cuff seams. Some of you may be wondering why I attached the cuffs before doing the underarm seams, and I did this because I wasn't bothered by the idea of having an exposed seam on the inside of the cuff and didn't want to have to negotiate the machine around the sleeve opening to attach the cuffs. Although small, it's totally possible to sew the cuffs to the sleeve bottoms after doing the underarm seam, and this way I could conceal the underarm seam inside the cuff. Usually when attaching sleeves to a bodice, you first sew a base stitch line 3/8 from the shoulder edge. This keeps the edge from stretching and getting distorted while also giving you the ability to gather the edge slightly to fit better in the sleeve hole of the garment. To attach the sleeves, I first turned the bodice wrong side out, my sleeves right side out, and then lined up the shoulder edge with the sleeve hole. Luckily, these sleeves did not appear to have a front or back, so I didn't have to be careful about which sleeve I was attaching to which sleeve hole. In this particular case, I found that on both sweatshirts, the sleeve holes were too big for the sleeves, so I had to get creative by taking up the excess in the side seams. Taking the time to attach the sleeves, I sewed them to the bodice with a 1/2-inch seam allowance. Then it was time to modify the cutting file. I knew I wanted to change the spinal cord, hip bones, bow tie, and mittens, so I first found reference images for the spinal cord and hip bones to trace, and then changed to the proper dimensions to fit my very anatomically incorrect skeleton. A little tidbit of fun history: the original sweatshirt that inspired both the blog and this version of this project was one that my mom made for me from a kit when I was around 7, I believe, during my sweatsuit era when I refused to wear jeans and could not be bothered to wear anything that wasn't fleece. I wore this sweatshirt a lot, consequently. Plus, I adored the subject and loved the metallic lame used for the appliques, the glitter fabric paint to finish the applique edges, and the inclusion of rhinestones as eyes and pocket watch embellishments. As a maker, I love having the ability to make those super niche things that may not be considered viable to sell to the masses, or in a variant unavailable for purchase. I created several variations for the mitten, but ultimately liked the Creepmas tree with the black accents the most. After making all the necessary changes, I then arranged my pieces by color to fit within the perimeter of my 12x12 inch cutting mat, and then exported these files to Cricut Design Space. I do have these files available for download below in the video description. I did find that after exporting the white cut layout that some of my strokes were coming up weird in Cricut Design Space. I went back to Illustrator, added some more anchor points to the problem areas, and then exported the corrected file. Once cut and weeded, I was able to cut my transfers apart and situate them on my sweatshirt fronts.
Doesn't matter if the snow is falling or the wind blows and the rain is pouring, it will always be Christmas in my heart. But this year I wanna hang out with my friends and family, making angels in the sand, you and me. Doesn't matter, it is Christmas in my heart. And I can promise Santa's coming to visit. No, he wouldn't miss this in Christmas times.
A nice feature of the iron-on transfer vinyl is that the exposed plastic backing is a little sticky, so you can stick your transfer to the garment and it stays in place.
In blue, ooh, yeah, that's what we do. Doesn't matter if the snow is falling or the wind blows in the rain.
Before I peel the backing plastic away, I like to test the edges just to make sure that the transfer is adhering.
But this year I wanna hang out with my friends and family, making angels in the sand, you and me. Doesn't matter, it is Christmas in my heart. Wanna falling, rain is pouring, wanna Christmas in my heart.
Although I love the challenge of making projects with supplies and tools that I've never used before, I also enjoy revisiting past projects and potentially improving them. If you enjoyed this video or you've been around for a minute, please consider sharing it with a friend, liking, commenting, and subscribing. All let me know that you love what you're watching, and thank you as always for visiting my creepy craft corner of the internet and for watching till the end. Now let's see those final shots.